Here we are. The day has finally arrived. It's time to get stacked with myself, Holly, and our lovely guest, Jade from Banded by Aquila. We'll just wait for a few minutes for people to come through and join. Let us know in the comments where you are watching us from. We are hoping to have a couple of people from America joining us today who have very kindly replied to our invitation and said, thankfully, it fits in with their time zone, which is even better. It's as if we planned that. Anyway, enough of an introduction. Let's get cracking so you guys can get some real good value from the conversation that we're going to have. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Holly Langley and I'm the founder of Restack. I work with companies, specifically Bullhorn customers, to help them maximize the use of Bullhorn through the use of automation, data, analytics, and AI. And over the course of the next 3 weeks, we're going to have some sessions just like this one with Jade and a couple of other experts to really make sure that customers of ours and people who are in the Bullhorn community and even outside of the Bullhorn community can really maximize their automations they've got going on, as well as their marketing and the data behind that. So that's me. If you aren't connected with me on LinkedIn, do give us a connection. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button because we absolutely love putting content out, and all of the subscriptions and the watching really enables us to do that more and more. Jade, over to you.
Fab. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thank you for joining us. So just a bit of an introduction on myself. So I'm the founder and director of Branded by Aquila. So we're an outsourced brand and marketing partner. I put the stress on that because we are very much a partner. No more than 2-3 days goes by when we're not speaking to our clients. So we're very integrated. We help recruitment agencies and recruitment agency supplier stand out in the market, bill more, and be better through our brand and marketing solutions.
Wonderful. And I let you all in a little secret. Jade actually supports me with my marketing strategy for my entire business. So she generally does mean it when we say that she's a partner with all of her clients, because she regularly gets WhatsApps from me at 6 o'clock on a Monday evening saying, I've just had a great idea. Need to speak to you about this. So she is a great asset to have. So let's kick off with our first question, Jade. Over to you. Why is marketing automation strategy or marketing strategy important?
I think at a top level, firstly, it's another touch point, right? So the more touch points and the more different platforms that we can be on to be able to talk to candidates and clients is a big tick in the box. The second thing is with automation, you're maximizing on what it is that you've already got, whether that's data in your CRM or it's people within your business, whether it's content that you're creating, you can make more out of less. Underpinning that, we've then got the fact that it helps the doing of the thing. So automation, it's not there to replace humans, just to make that very clear. It's there to help us be more efficient and to be quicker and to spot opportunities in a better response time. And then the next side to that is the nurture. So being able to nurture and warm up client leads, even candidates that maybe we haven't spoken to in a few months or even years, and just making sure that they're going to be, that we are front of mind for when they need us, because only 3% are ready to buy now in our database. Let's not exclude the other 97% of people that we've tried to get on there.
I think that's a really interesting point, and that is a great figure. So only 3% of people in your database are ready to buy right now.
Yeah, 100%.
So from looking at a strategy point of view, if you were just to go in and kind of just hope these people are going to go with and you had the same message for everybody, that's not going to have the same effect, is it?
No, absolutely. And I think where the transactional recruiter, where we start to see the phase out of the transactional partnership, and that's not just across recruitment, I think that's a lot of services, marketing included in that, where we start to see these transactional phase out, it will actually be the people that are building the relationships and nurturing across a longer period of time that will be the people that will still be there at the end.
Okay. And when we're looking at strategy, and would you advise at this point that there is a strategy for engaging candidates and engaging contacts, or would you kind of keep it into one strategy, or would you have multiple branches?
I think you always have to go back to the objective. What's the objective of the business? Because once you've got that, that'll then filter into your marketing objective. And then from that, you will then have your automation objective. And all of them should kind of stem to be able to support that top. If you really want a focus on leads, for example, then you're going to be focused more on automations that are driving specifically towards lead generation. Perhaps it's better retention around clients, and therefore you're going to be focusing on more advocacy campaigns. So look at the objective and then start to go down from there.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was very insightful. So let's pretend we've done our strategy,
yep,
and we're looking to kind of move on to the next bit. What are the key elements or the key points that is going to make a marketing automation strategy successful? Does that make sense? I've completely reworded the question that I'd written on the script.
No, that's fine. So you teed me up nicely in the first question, because objective is the top one. If we can't understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, and I said this to you the other day about something, I was like, okay, what's the objective here? Before we get down into the detail, what is it that we're trying to do? So you've got objective, that's the first one. The second one is data. So looking at the data that you've got, it's all very well having 20,000 contacts if they're not coded correctly, if we don't have the relevant fields or data to be able to segment by, and this kind of filters into training and internal processes, which you will know far better than me on that area. And then thirdly, we've got content. You need to be able to create content, certainly in like a nurture journey for marketing qualified leads. You need to have enough content to be able to fuel that. It's no point doing an 11-step email automation and not having anything to offer people. So do you have the resources to be able to go away and build a blog article, an infographic, a video, and be able to push that out? So 3 things: objective, data, content.
And with the objective elements of it,
yeah,
like, how specific do you need to be? Like, is it saying we want more leads? Is that okay? Or should we be saying we want a 25% increase in leads that actually get added, and then a 10% increase of ones that get converted? How can we make sure we're really kind of aligning with that objective?
I think having a clear objective is very important, but I think you also need to then be realistic in the resource and then your ability to be able to achieve that. So like the data, for example, there would be no point in setting yourself an objective to get 300 leads if you're sending to 1,000 people, for example, especially if you haven't spoken to them in the last year. That's just not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to go through a process of warming them up and nurturing them. So I think you need to temper your ambition or what you would like to get with a little bit of reality. And if it's a case that you've got a few building blocks to get there and you need to do, let's say, a nurture automation before you push out a report, for example, as a lead magnet, within that nurture automation, what are your goals within that? Perhaps it's getting your engagement rate higher and having more people click through to the website, more followers, if that's something that you're promoting. So you can kind of have those mini goals along the way.
I think that's brilliant. And one of the things that we do with our clients, especially if we're running automation campaigns, is before we start the campaign and turn it on, we basically assess where they're at now. So just an example, your fill rate is currently 25%. We then put in a bit of a goal and say, right, by the end of this year, we want that to be 30% or 40%. So we kind of know where they're at. Then the objective is based upon that. What we've also been trying to measure is the efficiency, because so many people are coming to us and saying, we want to make our consultants more efficient. How can we save them more time? And we've kind of come up with a bit of a process and a calculation to work that out per automation, which is really useful as well. And that's very much based upon time and how long we think how much time we've saved for the consultants.
Yeah.
In regarding the data stuff, conveniently, as if we planned it, this time next week, the Get Stacked episode is with Tracy O'Neill, who is a data expert. She brings a whole wealth of information and ideas and insights about data and analytics. So definitely come back next week to check that one out. And then content, it's so true. The more value you can give to people, the better. If somebody has got a really small marketing budget, or they only have resources, something like Canva, do you have any quick tips about how you can create some valuable content that doesn't cost the earth to produce?
Yeah, The first tip, avoid digital landfill and repurpose. If you've written a really good piece of content, so you've spent a few hours writing a blog or you've done a report, there are then a gazillion different ways in which you can repurpose that. You can break it down and you can do mini blogs. You might be able to do carousel posts. You could then do a thought leadership piece and get insight from a partner or somebody else in the space. Or maybe you could bring in a principal consultant and get their perspective on it with a case study. You could have a video. You could have a talking heads video. You could have, there's so many different things that you can do with that one piece of content. So don't just spend the hours on it and then put it to one side. I think also pick something that you're comfortable at. Don't go for an all singing, all dancing carousel ad or a really exciting video if you don't have the knowledge or the confidence to be able to action it. Try trying the written piece, so a LinkedIn article. I'm sure there'll be other people in your business or peers within your network that will be more than happy to read through a piece of content and say to you, oh, okay, I really like this, but actually this section, I wanted to understand more about X, Y, and Z. So even though it can be quite lonely in businesses, certainly, you know, if there's only a few of you, you can definitely go out to other people in your network and ask for their perspective.
That's really valuable. And I think the whole like LinkedIn personal brand thing, yeah, like of course, if you've done some really good LinkedIn posts or articles, you could repurpose that into an email content fairly easily. And there's many AI products out there that can probably do that for you as well, which is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I think repurposing what you've got if you don't have that budget there, yeah, great idea.
Another quick tip on that is if you go through your analytics and look at the last 30 to 60 days, look at your top performing posts that have resonated with people. And if they were text-based posts, then see how you can take those top 5 and then turn them into a video or turn them into a carousel. So if people like that information that you are providing, think, okay, what's the next step from that? How can I repurpose it into a different format? And then, you know, you're also testing content on different formats as well. But that's a whole nother piece, but it kind of answers the question on how to be able to generate content.
Wow, thank you very much. I love that. Yeah, all good insights. So on a similar note, kind of going back to the strategy element here, how can companies create a strategy if they just don't have a marketing expert like yourself in their business?
So 2 things I would say. The first bit is start small. It's really good to have an idea of where you would like to get to and what that nirvana might be, and certainly move that alongside your business plan. So if your plan is in the next 12 to 24 months to move into the US market, what are you doing about building data now ready for that in the future? So let's say you want to proportion 30% of your time to be collecting that data for a future project, because you don't want to get there in 12 months and think, oh, okay, we're starting from ground zero. And you can start to also do things to kind of warm up as well with those domains. I would say with your current data, and if you want those wins now, looking at, okay, these are the pool of people that we have. What's the easiest way to segment them? And it might be, if you're in a business that has a couple of different sectors that you're working across, then maybe you just do them by industry. It may be that you can do them by job title. So these are all kind of like top layer filters that you can start to be able to segment people by, or even by location. If you've got some consultants working on different territories, you can do it that way. You could even do it by consultants. You could do it by time. So let's say you want to send all of your clients that haven't had a note added in the last 6 months. We want to start to nurture them a little bit, and then we can put them into a different pool. So look at some of the easier ways that you can segment your data. And then once you've got to that point, so let's take the idea of a particular industry. At that point, we may say, okay, we want to drill down into this a little bit more. So now we're going to do it by, if we're in the US, we want to drill that down by states. So you're going to start to get more and more granular, but that relies on you having the correct data within your business to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that segmentation and to kind of working it out and then having that almost personalization that we're going to come into in a minute, based upon those industry sectors, locations, adds a massive amount of value. One of the things that I suppose that we do, and if there's one action point I absolutely just love doing when I go into businesses, is understanding that their current challenges. So there's no point if you don't have a strategy and you've got loads of candidates lining up to work with you, you might not need any more candidates if they're high quality. But if you've not got any jobs, then that's what you need. So when we go and work with clients, we really try to understand the existing problems, and we sit down with all of the recruiters and say, how can I help you? Are you tracking leads? How are you converting leads? So we've got a really good understanding of exactly what they're doing. And then that almost in a way kind of formulates our automation strategy, because we know their current pain points and their problems, which we can then kind of come in and solve, which is obviously what we really strive to do. I don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be complicated. It just needs to be the basics.
With the outsourcing, you touched a bit on about budget. If somebody hasn't got a lot of money, they haven't got an outsourced team. Outsourcing doesn't mean you have to outsource the whole thing. There are different ways to outsource. That could be a one-off in terms of a setup. It could be, actually, we think we've got the data and the automation side of it covered. We just need to outsource the building of the content. So the reports, the articles, the bits that go into it. Or actually, we want to invest in just some ongoing training for the next 6 months to upskill our team to be able to do that. So there's ways to identify what part of the automation you're struggling with the most, rather than looking at it one big problem. Where actually are your skills gaps within your teams, and where would you be best off outsourcing those particular areas? Because it also doesn't make sense to have invested in something like Bullhorn Automation and then not be able to do anything with it. You're actually reducing your efficiency at that point, and you're kind of losing out on getting a return from that investment, because at the last point of actually getting somebody to be able to help you use the tool, you've kind of stopped the journey.
Very true. So yeah, so I suppose it's almost like you need a strategy for the content that's going out. You need some support from the technology to make sure you've got the right stuff going, and then it's allocated to the right people within your business, or outsourced if needed, to kind of get it to where it needs to be.
Yeah, it would be like me going to the shop, filling up the basket, getting home and just putting it on the side and hoping that it cooks itself. Unfortunately, I would love that to happen, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, one day, you never know. So a minute ago, we briefly touched on personalization. So do you have any advice about how you balance automation and automated marketing processes with a real personal touch?
Yeah, I think personalization is key. We spoke about segmentation and things like personalization tokens. So making sure that when you're sending content to people, let's take the example that we're splitting it out by job title, for example. Within that layer of job titles, we can then start to have a look at like personalities that may exist within them. So the content that you're going to be sending to somebody in HR or a talent acquisition team is very different to what you're going to be sending to the hiring manager or a director of the company. So you need to make sure that the content that you're sending is reshaped specifically for that person. You'll know me, Holly, I love the value proposition canvas. It's like my favorite model. And actually, if you can fill out that little model, it's like a square and a circle, the two communicate to each other, so you can then actually build content that is relevant for that specific person. And it doesn't mean starting from scratch, it just means taking your service and reshaping it to respond to the jobs that they've got to do and the pains that they have while trying to complete those jobs. The next layer of that, once you've been able to make sure that your content is really targeted towards the people that you're reaching out to, is the triggers, so behavioral triggers. If somebody is less engaged, then actually we want to slow that journey down. We don't want to keep bombarding them. If somebody's really highly engaged, then okay, they're really enjoying this content. Let's send them some more. If your first email has 3 pieces of content, which bit was it that they clicked on? If it's the piece about email automation, then okay, we're going to send them some more content specifically around this area because we know that's what they're interested in. And then I think you also have to take a step back and think, okay, we've got this automation process, but people also want that human contact. So how do we embed that? Is that a case that some of the content has a human behind it? So it's a video of people talking, so they feel like they're starting to build those relationships with the brand. Or is it a case that you start to put in touch points where you say, actually, at this point, when somebody's got maybe a particular lead score, a particular behavior trigger, we now want to send a notification to the consultant to say, can you try and get in touch with this person and arrange a lunch? Can you try and, speak to them on the phone? Because at that point, our consultants can be more informed about the person that we're trying to build a relationship with, what it is that they're interested in. They can kind of use that as their toolkit to build a really good conversation.
I think that that point around just kind of coming back to like what's in the tech, like you really using the job titles, using the data just to expand on that further. It doesn't need to be overly complicated, but if you've got the right stuff in there and it's kind of been coded correctly, and then you're putting on top of that what they're interested in, you've actually got a really good kind of assumption about what these candidates or contacts are really valuing. One of my personal favorite automations is using something like a job matching. So either the Bullhorn AI auto matching or even like the semantic matching, you can really send candidates jobs so you know is going to be a match for their skills. So rather than sending a builder a job about being a plumber that is really irrelevant, that's very different jobs, very different skill sets, we can make sure the builders only get relevant jobs about being a builder, which means that that's a really small thing that's done within the system, but you can then personalize the content around that, personalized jobs, even personalized content, videos, whatever else it might be. And it just really, really adds to that. I don't know if anybody on here used recruitment agencies years ago, but I often get emails for a job that I did about 10 years ago, but I don't really have the heart to delete them because I find it fascinating to see what these recruitment agencies are kind of are or aren't doing from an automation point of view. But the more you can do, from my perspective, in the systems to build out kind of that value proposition and what those clients and candidates are interested in and their skills, interests, industries, it does make a massive difference.
Don't be disheartened as well. If you go through your data and you think, okay, well, I've segmented it down to this. I know that this is a really good quality group of people. I'm going to send them the best automation I've ever created. I've put my heart and soul into this. And then you've only got 200 people. Don't be disheartened with that number, because those 200 people are going to really appreciate that really well-crafted message that you've put together for them. Yeah. So you're going to see your engagement rate with them be really high, and actually your unsubscribe rate be considerably low, because they kind of feel that love and attention that you've given them, and making sure that it is relevant to them and speaks to them. And that comes back to the whole quality over quantity. And even though you've got those 200 now, the point is that you started to use automation within your business, and it's only going to grow from there, and you're only going to be able to learn what it is that you already want. So stick with it.
And arguably, like, if you send it to 200 people, it might do really well, it might not. But then over time, you can add more and more people in, refine that campaign further. So by the time it's gone to 200 further people, you've really nailed the open rates, the subject line, the body of the email to make it perfect. So you're then getting really, really good responses as well, which is good.
And if it's an automation as well, with those first 200 people, if you're sending them to something which is going to require them to maybe fill out a form, for example, you're then taking those 200 people and building more of a profile about them, which is only going to aid you in creating an automation which really resonates with that kind of person. So if you've got a better insight about the people it is that you're emailing, even if it's just off the first 200, you're going to be able to craft that message more so for the people moving forwards.
Wonderful. So we've got one final question, then we're going to come through to some Q&As. We've got a couple of comments already. If you have any questions for Jade or I, please do add them into the comments now, and we will come through and answer those. If we get lots of questions, we will follow up with you afterwards. But so this is one of the questions that I get asked a lot about value, ROI. We know recruitment agencies love some ROI. What types of campaigns tend to drive the highest engagement and conversion rates in your experience?
So I'd start with the objective. I like to bring you back to this. So what is the objective? And this also might vary depending on your sector that you're working in as well. But once you can understand that will depend on what the success looks like. And we spoke about this kind of a bit at the beginning. If you really want leads, and let's say you're working in an environment where it purely just matters about the spec of the candidate and their experience, then actually a chain of spec CVs might be the best thing for you to be able to get leads off the back of that. If your objective is to warm up people that you haven't spoken to a while and start to establish relationships, then a nurture journey would be best. And we'll be looking at how many people are clicking through and maybe building up some kind of lead scoring so that we can understand more about them and then pass that over to a consultant when it gets to a particular level. Perhaps retention is an objective for the business. I think it's 5 times more expensive to win back a client. So we would like to try and retain our clients if we can. And in that retention piece, we might be looking at an advocacy automation, which spans over a 12-month period and has perhaps 6 different touch points in it, collecting things like Google review, NPS score, delivering some check-in notes and some value-added content for how to best provide a 1-month check-in process with a new hire, all the way through to, okay, it's at 12 months. Can you believe that it's been a year since we've placed this candidate, et cetera, et cetera. So go back to the objective that you have within your business, and start to then map out your journeys towards them. And if it's one which is leads, then yes, you should be measuring how many leads. If it's one where it's retention, actually how many of those clients are then coming back to you and feeling like they've had a positive experience. You've got your net promoter score.
Interesting. And I find it really fascinating. I love personally, I love a net promoter score, and we're about to start implementing that within our business as well, because I really believe it is the way to grow your business and get that continued feedback. I always find it fascinating what automations really get results. So over the last 6 months, we've been running a campaign for a client, and it was candidates who were due to be archived because we hadn't spoken to them for a while. Obviously, they weren't coded very well on the system, so they just weren't searchable, no activity. And we just sent them a really basic 1-step automation that said, look, we're going to remove you, but if you're looking for a job, please update your CV here. We asked them to update their industry and upload a CV. And out of that 500 candidates, we got 100 CVs. Mm-hmm. So 100 profiles have been updated on Bullhorn. We've got 100 CVs. And now we're just waiting for the interviews, CVs, and obviously placements hopefully to come through from those as well. And the ROI of that is massive, because we were going to archive those candidates. But one sort of last fail safe, we've said, upload your CV. That process is fully automated. And there's 100 candidates who have come back through that we now no longer have to archive, which is absolutely brilliant, because it's added more value into our system. It's kept stuff within the system. We've kept that relationship with them, and we haven't had to go elsewhere, e.g. to LinkedIn, to try and get more and more candidates through.
If you look at something like lapsed clients, for example, it's not the customer's job to remember you. It is your job to stay present in their mind. And this goes across every touch point, from your LinkedIn personal brand all the way through to your email. And actually, it is so noisy out there. I mean, I get a sweat on if I haven't posted in 48 hours, because I'm like, oh God, my competitors are posting. I need to post. I need to be there. I need to be consistent. And very much email allows you to kind of be that presence, even if you are having a week when you're out and about and your consultants aren't able to do those follow-ups on times. If you can make sure that you've got a process in place to constantly be having a touch point with them over and over again, it allows you to be consistent in a really noisy landscape, so that when they do have a need, going back to the whole 3% thing, when they do have a need for you, they go, oh, I'm always seeing those emails. Actually, I had a really good report come through the other day. Oh, and then did you see them on LinkedIn? Oh, and actually then I heard about them at this event. And, it starts to kind of kick off this little web of touch points. So I think email is a really easy way for you to be able to achieve that consistency.
I love that. And I agree with you entirely. Something I'm looking into, and I haven't told you about this yet, so watch out from a marketing perspective. I was thinking about doing more about WhatsApp. I found out that there's something called, WhatsApp channels? And I was thinking maybe I have to start uploading stuff to a WhatsApp channel with like tips and advice, and people can learn about that. Then I was like, okay, we don't need any more channels from my point of view at this time being. I think YouTube, LinkedIn, email, text is enough, and we'll save the WhatsApp for another day. But, if you do want me to have a WhatsApp channel, put it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. And in talking of comments, if you have any questions, please do let us know. Just to let you know, just as a quick reminder, 16th of April, next Wednesday, we're on with Tracy O'Neill from the Data Consultant, talking all things data that's going to underpin our strategy. And then the 23rd of April, James Veal from Meet Recruitment is going to join us. We're talking all things AI automation strategy, specifically as well, how to review, refine, and innovate automations to really ensure they stay aligned with your business and really, really drive success. So we've had a question from Naomi. She says, I'm based in the US. Do you offer your services over here? Jade, I'll come to you first.
Yes, yeah, we both do. Yeah, I offer my services remotely. And as I said before, we're very much integrated with the businesses. Holly will definitely kind of attest to that, to integrate ourselves as best as possible. I know that Holly does as well. She'll come into her thing. We also offer a package together as well, so you kind of get the best of both worlds under that. Me on the marketing content side of things, then Holly on the data and the Bullhorn expert over there. So it's a yes from me.
Brilliant. Yeah, me too. We currently work with companies in the US and the UK, and I actually did some work recently with someone in Australia and was up at like 6 o'clock in the morning trying to do some stuff with that. If you are in America and you're over at Bullhorn Engage in Boston, that is happening in May, I will be there as well. So please do come and say hi, and we can catch up on all things automation over some of the networking events that are there. If you have any comments, let us know. Jade, I've got a final curveball question for you that you don't know is coming. It's about AI.
Okay.
So I'm seeing so much content and email stuff that's being written by AI.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to go down the route of saying, do you know what, we can't afford marketing. I'm a terrible copywriter. We just need to get some AI support to help us. Do you have any advice about how you can kind of work with AI to create content that sounds like you and your business rather than something that anybody could have written?
Yeah, of course. So using AI, yes, definitely. Certainly if you go to a marketing agency and they say they don't use AI, I'm sorry to say they're being dishonest. But we are using AI. It's about how you use it, using it to do the legwork, like you said. So if you've got a structure and some ideas in your head and you just need some clarity or some wrap around to what that looks like, and speak to AI, but don't be sloppy when it comes to the prompt. The prompt that can sometimes be, you know, just as long as the information that you're giving it to be able to chuck out whatever it is the other end. You know, craft that, refine it, see what AI comes back with, and then from that, don't just copy and paste. There should then be a process where actually you're reviewing and you're tweaking. So actually this bit doesn't sound like me. This bit hasn't understood what it is that I'm trying to do there. Take that out, remove it. You can always put it back into AI and say, okay, this wasn't right. This is what I'm trying to get to. Can you try and reiterate that? And then just keep having those reiterations, but by a human. You know, we will read stuff multiple times to make sure that it sounds like our client's tone of voice, certainly when we're doing personal brand work and we're really trying to make sure that it's unique to that person, because it also is really easy to spot AI content, and it just looks like you're lazy, and people are getting a bit sick of it. So the more we can make sure that the human is a part of that process is great. I mean, I use it. I'm a bit of a waffler, as we can see demonstrated right now. So I will often write something, and because I want to make sure that something's very detailed, I end up making it a little bit more complex. So I ask AI and I literally say, can you condense this, reduce the fluff, to give me a better structure? And then it will come back and I'll be like, why didn't I just say it like that? And then I put the me back in it, because quite often it's a little bit too cold, or it hasn't got the right tone for me, or it's missed out some key things that are relevant to me in my area of expertise that AI doesn't know, because it hasn't invested in all the things that I have. So I think it's a balance of the two, but don't get sloppy with the prompts.
Yeah, we've just had a comment saying, I hope this email finds you well, is what AI normally starts every email with. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. There we go. You'd have to ask the custom prompt to remove that, so it says some more introductions for you there. However, I often think that's actually how I start some of my emails. So I suppose in a way, if it sounds like you and that's what you normally do, then that might be okay. That doesn't sound like you, then let's get those prompts working for you.
If you use AI a little bit like a personal, I mean, personal as in like a human assistant as well. I mean, I apologize to AI sometimes. Oh, sorry, no, I didn't explain myself. Yeah. And because I don't know, I think if you invest in it as you would do a person, yes, it's going to retain more of that information, but you still need to put into it. Just because it's a robot, it doesn't know what you're thinking.
Very true. Very true. Well, on that note, because I'm sure we can sit here and talk about AI all day, we will wrap it up there. Jade, thank you so much for coming on. If people are interested in finding more about what you do, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, so you can find us on LinkedIn. We've also got brandedbyaquila.com, our website. If you find me on LinkedIn as well, I've got a book an appointment slot, so you can book a time in my diary as well, if you want to chat. But with the theme of kind of giving value added content, if you follow us on LinkedIn, we're very big on kind of just sharing information as much as we can.
Yeah, and if you haven't downloaded the playbook that Branded by Aquila has, go and download that, all about personal branding. It's an absolute game changer. Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me, and it means that we can continue to create even better content for you. I hope to see you all again next week for our session with Tracy, all about data automation. And I hope you found our insights really valuable. If you have left us a comment and we haven't been able to get through to it today, we will come back and reply to you over the coming days. And thank you very much for watching. And Jade, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.